What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode on the Christian Constitutionalist Podcast. So honored and blessed to have Sean with us. Sean, will you please introduce yourself and give everybody an idea of who you are and what you're about?
What's up, Anthony? Thank you for having me on. My name is Sean. Some of you may, if you were on TikTok, you may have seen me. I used to go by Out of the Matrix. I had like 7 TikTok accounts. They all got millions and millions of views, and every single one of them is now banned and censored and deleted.
Wow.
But I've always just really felt guided to study lots of stuff about how the earth has been controlled and taken advantage of by what I call the Matrix. Some people also refer to it as the Illuminati, the Cabal, the Deep State, whatever you want to call it. There are entities that are really, really hell bent on controlling and enslaving the entire human race. And I've always been someone that just really felt guided to study how all that came to be, how they do it to us, what are the tricks that they're using against us, and how do we hedge against it? How do we live our lives in a way that is free from those that wish to control us? And that's actually how I met Anthony. Is we were both just posting very similar content on Facebook, and he reached out to me and asked me to come on this podcast. So we're going to have an unscripted conversation about how the Matrix is controlling you, how they're manipulating your consciousness, how they're poisoning you, how they're financially enslaving you, and how you can potentially start taking action steps to break free from these systems that enslave us and suppress our human consciousness.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you pointed out all that. And I'm glad you mentioned that you've always wondered about this. With so many people finally opening up their eyes and questioning things, what advice do you have to those people and how to properly guide them into searching for truth, especially starting off?
We live in a time where we have information abundance at our fingertips. You can order almost any book about any topic you want with the click of a button on Amazon. You can subscribe to any podcast you want, or any independent researcher or independent journalist or non-biased independent CEO of a company that has products and services that help our agenda, which is to free humanity. You can go on the internet and it's all there if you're willing to find it, if you're willing to spend some time, if you're also willing to put yourself out there. Like, let's say you had an aha moment, or you came across some new information that really connected some dots that you found very valuable, that helped expand your consciousness and added value to your experience here, and you wanted to share that with the world. When you start sharing information, you attract like-minded people that can also add value and help connect dots and help put the puzzle pieces together. And I believe that we've reached this point where we're so interconnected, where we can connect with people all over the world. And now we have this digital ecosystem through social media and our smartphones and this advanced communication technology where we can just connect with all the like-minded people. And I believe that each person has a different piece of the puzzle. And so when we all come together and unify our minds as one, then all the puzzle pieces come together, and then the truth becomes available to everyone. And we figure out exactly what to do to move forward to fight against this war that's waged against us.
Very, very good points. Let me build on top of that. I keep telling people that influence matters. Influence matters. You look at Hebrews 10:25, where it says, "Do not forsake the assembling of the saints, as a manner of some is." And you look at those who did in Scripture, and the reason why they were tossed to and fro, and the reason why they left the faith, and it was because they let the influence of the world captivate them, instead of surrounding themselves and making a priority to surround themselves with people who were like-minded. Now, Um, you talking about how when you start searching for truth, you will attract those who are also searching for truth. And the initial part of searching for truth is it's scary, but it's exciting. It's scary, but it's exciting. It's scary because you're about to enter a realm, if you may, where you are about to find out that the way you've been, and here's an important word, conditioned and living is actually all part of this master plan. When people start opening their eyes and realizing what they are in, they will come to the conclusion that they have been living in a false reality. Most people are comfortable in this false reality, which is why they don't want to ever come out of it. The saying, ignorance is bliss, is something that a lot of people live by. And it's unfortunate. You look in I believe it's John chapter 8, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Well, I always look at it like this: without God and without scripture, there is no truth. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. If you take God and scripture out, the ideology of my truth and your truth exists. There is no law and order, there's only chaos. But because there is a God, and because we do have scripture, and because we do have an example of how to live and whatnot, we can learn to discern what is truth and what is lies. But unfortunately, many people are stuck on this ideology that there's your truth and my truth, and that's it. And that is simply not the case. And so the people that have that dangerous mindset are the ones who are lost and blinded. And so when it comes to desiring truth, it's important to understand that there will be people that you're going to break away from, or that are going to break away from you. I usually tell people this: I vote Republican, but I'm a constitutionalist, hence the Christian constitutionalist. I have pissed off people in the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the Libertarian Party, and those who are not even affiliated with a party, because I show them what the truth is. And so a lot of people, they have beliefs that are associated with the group that they are a part of. They never have that desire to search what they claim to believe themselves. One of my sayings I say often is, there's not much difference between the average religious individual and the American voter. Whatever sounds good and makes them feel good, that's what they'll go with. And that's true. It's much easier to hear someone tell you what you think is truth than for you to search it yourself. It is. When you realize that the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, and the Libertarian Party is all part of the plan to divide and conquer, you'll really start seeing, man, like, things are not right. Most of our politicians are bought by a country, primarily Israel, but it's also places like Saudi Arabia and China. Whatever throws them money, that's what bills they will try to push through. They're puppets. And I hate to say this, but it's even with our current president, which is President Trump, who I've been a huge supporter for since 2016. And to give you an idea, I'm 26. So for years, I defended this man. And to see many of the things that he's tolerated, it's discouraging. And that's one of the reasons why I say, at the end of the day, we just have each other. This is all we've got. It's us, and only us. Unity is what's going to unite us. Knowing the truth is what's going to unite us. But if we get caught up in staying associated with a political party because it's easier to do that than to search truth ourselves, then we will continually be divided. More and more people are starting to have their eyes open, but at the same time, many people are still being bought out, especially those in the conservative movement. It's funny how after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and that's even up for debate in some cases, but it's funny after that situation happened, how many people started being exposed for their love and enslavement to Israel. I found it very discouraging. And all you got to do to debunk this whole thing is understand that the Israel today is 1948, political state Israel. Um, People like Ted Cruz will use Genesis 12, which he doesn't even know. He'll try to quote it. But, God tells Abraham in Genesis 12, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed through you. And, whoever blesses you, I will bless. And whoever curses you, I will curse. But if you read Galatians chapter 3, verse 29, it says, if you are of Christ, then you are of Abraham's seed. And then throughout the scriptures, you'll see, there is no Jew nor Gentile anymore. So we've gotten a group that's opening their eyes, but they're still listening to conservative figures and not doing the deep research themselves. Why? Because they're bought. They're bought. So when it comes to being a truth seeker, you must understand that you are going to be separated, and from a lot of people, friends, and maybe even family may even cut you off. But knowing the truth is more important than even silver and gold. I mean, read the Proverbs when it comes to knowledge and wisdom. So the things that we're going to talk about are things that are going to potentially save your life if you play your cards right, but you must desire first. So with that being said, Sean, where do you want to take us? What should we talk about first? So many things to talk about.
Yeah. You opened up some rabbit holes there. Well, I hear you say that the average voter is someone that's practicing a religion. And if you really look at the way that the government is constructed, it, in my opinion, is the world's largest religion. It's called the religion of statism, where the government is God. And if you look at the way that different religions have rituals, the religion of statism also has rituals. Public school is like going to church, but for the religion of statism. Singing the Star-Spangled Banner is like singing a praise song for the religion of statism. Pledging your allegiance is a religious ritual, a prayer. Paying taxes is like a tithing, a penance, or a donation to the church. Washington, D.C., the White House is a religious temple. All 50 state capitol buildings in each state is a religious temple. Even joining the army is a jihad, a holy war, fighting for what? Our freedom. But who is our freedom supposedly granted by? The government. Right. And just like religions have statues where they glorify their deities, well, the religion of statism also has statues. Have you ever seen the Abraham Lincoln Memorial? It's a statue of a politician who is deified. I mean, they even carved the heads of their political deities in the freaking mountain, and you can go see it. It's right here in the United States. It's called Mount Rushmore. Yep. Sacred, just like every religion has a sacred text. We got the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Talmud, all these sacred texts. Well, in the religion of statism, we also have sacred texts. The U.S. Code, the Uniform Commercial Code, the Black's Law Dictionary, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. So if you really look at the big picture, this whole world is just a massive religion that's under the jurisdiction of the government. So that's why I say the government and the religion of statism is the largest religion in the world, because they govern and regulate all the other smaller religions underneath it. It doesn't matter, Mormon, Catholic, Christian, Protestant, whatever. Those religions, if they, and don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of religions that kind of have broken away from this because they realize it, but then there's a lot of other religious institutions that have fully engulfed themselves in the matrix that they claim to not like, because a lot of churches, they're 501c corporations. They fill out the 501c form and send it to the IRS to gain their corporate status. Well, what is a corporation? That's a corpse, a dead body. And that's all part of the matrix control system, was to corporatize everything. And this is how a lot of ancient teachings that do have a lot of knowledge and wisdom get hijacked and then corrupted by getting sucked into this whole corporate construct, where it becomes more about siphoning money from people rather than actually liberating people and freeing their mind from the systems that enslave them. What do you think about that, Anthony?
Dude, I've never heard it as in statism, but dude, you just nailed it without missing a beat. And you're right on so many things. One of the things that I tell people is there's over 50,000 religions in this world. Over 45,000 religions claim Christianity. But you read Matthew 16:18, Christ built his church. And what's funny is many people think the church is a building, but scripture does not show that. What I find interesting is when I try to study the scriptures with people, we're just talking about English. We're not even talking about the Greek yet and the Hebrew. We're just talking about the English. People shy away from that, but then ask me to go to their church. Like, whoa, what? You don't want to study? Like, how can you be a part of something and not know the history of it? And so it's one of those things where, for example, baptism being essential for salvation, not many people preach that. They think it's optional. And I can state verses: Matthew 28:18 through 20, Mark 16:16, Acts 2:38. You got 1 Peter 3:21. You've got Romans 6:1 through 4. All through the book of Acts is actually what we're going through in our Wednesday night Bible class. Soaking wet of just baptism, which actually means immersion. The word baptisma in the Greek, it means immersion, to be dipped or submerged. Less than 1% of those religions that claim Christianity preach repentance and baptism for the remission of sins. And so you look at Mark 16:16, and Christ himself says, he that believes and is baptized shall be saved, but he that does not believe shall be damned. And I've had people say, well, you see, he that does not believe shall be damned. In the Greek, it means he that does not obey what I just said. And so here's the deal. We've gotten so caught up in forming our beliefs with where we go instead of searching the scriptures daily like the Bereans did, which is why Paul noted them as more noble, because they reasoned together. I believe it's in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, where it says, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. So many people that claim to be believers, they're more fans of Christ. And so a lot of people know of Christ, they don't know Christ. And if they knew the scriptures, especially the original language to an extent, they would see that much of what's being taught is actually false. That's why it says, wide is the way that leads to destruction, and many be there that find it. But narrow is the way that leads to everlasting life, but few be there that find it. Christ himself says, look, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. You look at the Old Testament when it came to fighters. I believe it was the Battle of Gideon, if I remember correctly. 33,000 men were originally getting ready to fight, and they had to go through some steps, and these steps weeded them out. And by the end of all the steps, you had 300 people that were about to go to war on behalf of Israel. There's always going to be few of us, but it's the few of us that actually question, hey, has what I've been taught really true? Is what I'm being taught accurate? But it takes sacrifice. It takes discipline. And in a country that is so blessed, we've gotten so comfortable with the pleasures of life that we've lost our purpose in life. I often say, many people want Christ as their savior, but not as their king. And the difference is people want to, you know, reap the benefits that come with being a Christian, but they don't want to submit to authority. And that's where the word Christian gets a bad name, is because so many people do not properly live up to it. And if you actually look at the scriptures, Christ never called us Christians. It was actually those at Antioch, those who were outside the body, that called the believers Christians because they followed Christ. So if one can understand that, that's a good foundation to start at. And so is there truth out there? Absolutely. But it takes perseverance, it takes endurance, and it takes sacrifice. Um, I grew up going to a church of Christ. I preach at a church of Christ at times. But the thing is I've noticed a lot of issues within the church of Christ, and I've done my very best to inform the brethren of them and help guide them away from their traditionalism. But many have rejected that. And so I will be judged on the day of judgment for how I've lived. And I will actually be judged harsher, because those who are teachers, those who are preachers, they are going to have a harsher judgment. And so I do my best to be biblical, to be scriptural. And it's taken me a long time. I've got a lot more to learn. I'll never know everything. But I'll tell you what, the things I know now was due to sacrifice and due to desiring to learn more and to know the truth, not just what is spoken in the pulpit. And so that's what I've got to say about that, and how you did the whole structured statism. I think, if I'm saying that correctly, that
Statism.
was, I've never thought about it like that. That is phenomenal. So you're absolutely right. And so with that being said, I want to ask you, and feel free to jump to a different discussion regarding this as well. Tell me, how can people prepare with all this going on? How can people prepare for one of the worst things that could change the course of humanity forever, with digital ID? A lot of people think Revelation is talking about that. So whether it is or is not, whether it is or isn't, what information do you have for people that they can prepare for this catastrophic event that may occur?
I think to prepare, the first thing that you really got to focus on is your mindset. Get yourself mentally prepared. That way, if shit does hit the fan,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't catch you by surprise, and you can
Right.
maintain what I call a certain amount of emotional resilience. Because if shit really hits the fan, there's going to be people that become very emotionally unstable, and that's dangerous.
Yes.
So I think the first thing is prepare your mind mentally, psychologically, spiritually. Then get rich, because money will give you the ability to go buy 100 acres way far away from all the control and the manipulation and the poisoning and the vaccinations and the fluoride in the water and the chemtrails that they're trying to implement. If you got money, you can go start a breakaway civilization, a civilization, and evacuate your family. You can go grow your own food. You can drill your own water wells. You can set up your own solar panels, your own self-generating electricity. You can become self-sufficient in case. This is just like worst case scenario. Like if shit really does hit the fan and you don't have a backup plan or a bug out spot or a plan B, you might be in a lot of trouble, and it could cost you and your family your life. So I think really educating yourself, becoming financially literate, learning how to invest, learning how to multiply money, learning about banking, learning how to create multiple streams of residual income, learn how to be a leader, learn how to scale businesses, learn how to build a client base, learn how to build a community, and then learn the skills that you may need in order to survive out there on your acres that you bought. Survival skills. Have backup plans and backups of everything, and have multiple different ways of transacting for different scenarios that could potentially play out. So, for example, we all know that the world is enslaved by the Federal Reserve central banking system and their fiat monies. Well, there's a lot of different ways that you can transact now that are free and sovereign from that central banking system. We've got gold, we've got silver, even physical cash, even though it still kind of feeds that beast to even use cash. But you got the decentralized cryptocurrencies like privacy coins like Monero and Zano, where you can transact over the internet completely private and the government can't track it. They can't stop it. They can't reverse a transaction. So understanding decentralized finance technology, but that's not the end all be all, because if the internet goes out, you can't use a cryptocurrency. So you need to have
Right.
gold and silver, physical cash, guns, bullets, backup food supplies, backup medical supplies, tangible assets that you can use to barter in a shit hit the fan situation. And then getting everyone else on the same page. At some point, you're going to have to sit down with your family and explain all this to them. Like, hey, this is the situation we're in right now. And make sure that they're also prepared mentally, spiritually, psychologically, and start bestowing some of this knowledge and the skill sets to the people that you care about, in case there comes a situation where you literally need to evacuate your whole family out of the big city because it's a life or death situation where they're going to be force vaccinating everyone. They're not going to let you buy food at the grocery store unless you got your digital ID. And then after you get your digital ID, you might start being able to work. You might start getting the paychecks, getting the benefits because you got your digital ID and you're getting paid in the fiat money. And then all of a sudden they're going to say, oh, looks like you're not up to date with your vaccinations. We're going to freeze your bank account and you're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to shop at the grocery store now with your digital ID until you get your vaccinations. That's how they're going to try to kill a bunch of you. So there's a lot of different scenarios that could play out. We could have internet power outages. That means PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, Zelle is not going to work. All of a sudden at once, they could make all of those payment processors require a digital ID. All of a sudden, all the grocery stores in your area might require a digital ID and a vaccine health pass or something like that. They could crash the economy. I mean, they always crash the economies. There could be a dollar that goes hyperinflationary. They could crash the crypto market. They could crash the stock market. They could crash the housing market. They manipulate all the monies and the markets and pretty much every single money, market, asset class, commodity. It's all manipulated by the central banks. So you got to prepare for multiple different scenarios that could possibly play out one at a time or all together at once. You follow me so far?
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on family or friends compounds? Because I know a lot of people are starting to do that now.
I think that's a fantastic idea. Again, it goes back to what I was saying about having a plan B, having a bug out spot. And you really think about it, a family and friends compound would also kind of be described like as a village. And that's how, for the most part, people have always just lived in villages and communities. But it wasn't until more recently, where we have this government control system that created all these imaginary lines on a map with states and cities and counties and jurisdictions, and then put all these rules and regulations against people actually starting villages. Like if you try to start a village, someone from the county will, I mean, not everywhere, but in most places, in most zoning areas that are zoned for something, anywhere within a reasonable distance to the amenities of the city, if you go and try to start a village, the government's going to send their cronies, their zoning regulation people, and be like, you can't have this many houses on here. It violates the zoning laws. You can only have one house, or you can only have two houses. You can't build a dozen houses for all your friends and family. No, they don't want that, because that would allow more people to get out of the cities and into a more self-sufficient community. See, that's the whole thing with the zonings and the cities and the county And the imaginary lines and the zoning restrictions, it's to keep people entrapped in the matrix controlled cities. They don't want you breaking away from the big cities because that's how they keep people under their control.
You know, without giving too much information out, you know, my wife and I live in Texas, and we own land, but it's near one of the major cities, and it's unrestricted land. It's only a couple of acres, but for many reasons, we've been thinking about and considering, um, if certain things go through, jumping ship because of the amount of people that are flooding here,
Mm-hmm.
but also the Texas isn't what people think it is. And I can go in depth with that later, but they're legitimately and purposefully destroying land with everything they're implementing with the data centers, with the
Mm-hmm.
5G towers. Bees aren't even staying near 5G towers. It's killing them off if they're not able to get away. Um, they're trying to, what was it called? The United Nations Agenda 21 mega cities. They
Mm-hmm.
are trying to make it to where uh, deserted land or vacant land, wilderness, if you may, uh, opened areas such as, like, you know, in Wyoming, Alaska, Montana, Idaho, Washington, even in some parts of Texas and whatnot. They're trying to make it to where people will not be able to own land to become self-sufficient. We're basically going towards the path of what China is right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what it is. If you look at the pandemic, when everything hit, people were locked out of their bank accounts. The government actually chained doors to these massive buildings that have thousands of rooms that are super tiny, and they burned the buildings down, killed everyone in there. Um, you've got people right now in Vietnam, 86 million people I saw a couple weeks ago, locked out of their bank accounts. Austria just implemented digital ID. Australia, you look what's going on with the UK with the chip in the hand in order to work. And so some people, you know, may ask, well, are they just going to take my land away? No, I don't think so. What they're going to do is they're going to make it to where you can't pay your bill. They're going to make it to where, you know, oh, they're going to make up new laws to where you can't own land. They're going to make it to where you can't drive without a uh, what you call it, a digital ID for your driver's license in Texas. Um, September 2026 to March 2027. Between that time, they are going to be mandating that every Texan get a digital driver's license. Absolutely not. I will not bend the knee. And so some people might be concerned with, well, I own land. Is there a chance that we might lose everything? I've thought about this myself. Even if I do go to another state and get land, is that a possibility? Absolutely. The thing is that we cannot comply. We cannot comply. Whether we make it through it alive or whether we don't, we cannot comply. Us hanging on to certain things and complying will only enslave us even more. They will try to make us desperate in order to get us to comply. Do not do it. And that is so hard for a nation to understand when only a portion, less than 2% of the nation, actually knows what it means to be a soldier. Very few people who are civilians actually know what it takes to endure and to survive. Very few outside of the military and law enforcement. But not everybody that's law enforcement and military knows how to survive. Just because someone wears a uniform, that doesn't make them a soldier. I served with plenty who were mega unconstitutional, and I called them out on it. And so just know this, and coming from a veteran, the military is not going to help you. Law enforcement's not going to help you. No one is going to help you. What you need to do now is get involved with your community or start a community. You need to learn skill sets. I remember a few days ago, I saw this guy on YouTube who homesteads, an older gentleman, probably in his 50s or 60s. And he was talking, I believe, Chat GPT or Grok. And he basically asked a simple question like, who's going to survive, the Great Reset? And long story short, it said those who know how to think for themselves, those who know how to survive, build things by themselves. That's who's going to survive. It's not going to be the ones that are enslaved, especially in the cities. It's not going to be the ones that are comfortable. No, we've got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Freedom is not pretty. It comes with a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice. And to give people an idea, when you look at the book of Exodus and you look at the children of Israel coming out of the land of Egypt, within 30 to 45 days, they were already complaining, wanting to go back. Several factors, just because that's all they knew was enslavement, because they've been enslaved for so long. But number two is they said they wanted to go back because they had a more variety of food. God was giving them manna and then eventually gave them quail. But they didn't have a variety of clothes. They did not have a variety of food. They didn't. They had what they needed. And so freedom does not come with as much. It comes with less, actually. But if you're content and prepared, you won't need all the other nonsense. I believe these cities and these malls and these shopping centers and all this nonsense has actually been a huge distraction for us. And so, as someone who does live out in the country, even though I'm 30, 40 minutes away from the nearest city, let me tell you, those distractions are meaningless. They don't help you in any way, shape, or form. You spend money on things you don't need. You buy vehicles that, you don't need. And so many people have the mindset, oh, well, I need to show off to people. No one cares. No one cares. If you have nice things, you drive nice cars and have nice houses, but are also prepared, hey, good for you. But for someone like me who isn't rich, per se, learn to be content if you can never get the opportunity to be rich. And so there's a lot less that we can live on, but we have to be willing to do that. And so and I'll say this before I send it back to you, Sean, but in a nation that is so blessed, that has so much access to information and assets, it's amazing how we most of the time go after the things that will never benefit us because they make us comfortable instead of going after the things that are necessary, that will most likely keep us alive.
I hear you talking about, all these conveniences and things that for the most part are kind of entrapping people.
Yes.
And I wanted to elaborate a little bit about that, because if you really think about it, the systems that the world controllers have put in place do kind of appear very convenient in the short term.
Right.
They have all these, they call them benefit systems, or they have these food stamp systems, or sometimes they'll give you like a stimulus check, or some kind of system put in place to throw the peasants breadcrumbs, right, to keep them kind of pacified. Right. And it's all these systems, the employment systems, the banking systems, the healthcare systems, the medical systems, the communication systems, the transportation systems, the legal systems. All these systems were manufactured by the world controllers to kind of keep everyone in check. And we do see faith in those systems crumbling at an exponential rate. And as these old systems that were meant to enslave us crumble, we all have the opportunity to just use the power of our mind to create new systems that do benefit humanity, new systems that allow people to live in an environment that is fair and just and healthy and more liberating. And as these old systems do crumble, and we're starting to figure out new systems, the world controllers are also trying to update their control system to a more sophisticated system. And that's where we get into the things like the digital IDs, the health passes, Palantir and their AI surveillance, the data centers. So the matrix controllers, they've been using different systems of enslavement for thousands and thousands of years. This goes all the way back to Babylon and even before then. And over these
Yes.
thousands and thousands of years, the Babylonian systems of enslavement have grown more and more sophisticated. And we're kind of reaching this apex of the war of human consciousness, in my opinion, where the Babylonian enslavement systems are now so sophisticated and so complex that they're literally injecting you with graphene oxide self-assembling nanoparticle technology that responds to the 5G pulse microwave frequencies to activate things inside your body that kills you. That's the level of sophistication that they have. And a lot of the technologies are ancient. They've been around for a long time, but they've been very suppressed and they've been weaponized against us in secret. So all the technology already exists and has existed, in my opinion, for thousands of years to create a world that is free and abundant, where we have abundant food, we have abundant clean water, we have abundant wireless energy, like what Nikola Tesla was trying to reverse engineer, that's been suppressed. The matrix controllers create the illusion of scarcity, and they've kept humanity very stuck at a primitive level of technology and a primitive level of knowledge, while occulting all the really advanced technology and occulting the knowledge of how the universe really is an abundant place. But they have to create the illusion of scarcity in order to control you. And going back to like the different systems, it goes way beyond just the systems I listed prior. They also created the language systems, because even the words in the English language are very manipulative.
Yes.
Like the word government comes from two words in Latin, gubernare, which means to control, and mente, which means mind. Government means to control the mind. Mortgage comes from two words in Old French, mort, which is referring to the mortuary, which is where dead people go, which is referring to death. So mortgage is a mortuary gage, and gage means a contract or a pledge. So when you get your mortgage, you're actually getting a death pledge. And even if you pay off that whole mortgage after the 30 years, what do they still make you keep paying? Property tax. So a mortgage is a death pledge. Government means mind control. Even the word politics, we have POL, which is referring to polarization. To polarize is to divide, to push something to one end of a spectrum. So polarization is ancient Hermetic knowledge. It's like a fundamental construct of the universe and the dualistic reality we live in, which is polarization exists. We have hot and then cold. That's a polarization. We have love and we have hate. That's a polarization. And politics starts with the POL, in my opinion, because we have right versus left, a polarization. And then the politicians are voted into power at the voting poll, and they create policies that are enforced by the police. And it's all a big divide and conquer strategy to keep the people arguing amongst each other instead of taking part in unified action against their real enslaver, which are the central bankers that control all the politicians. You follow me so far?
Dude, you are just slamming it, man. I'm actually learning some things. And before we got on, you mentioned we were talking about pharmakeia and how I did a sermon on that, which is the Greek word for sorcery,
Yep.
and which it means sorcery, drugs, or magic. And so, how has the spiritual warfare, especially like pharmakeia, how has that impacted us? You talked about the 5G towers, and I know we've talked about that. I've talked about it myself on lives and whatnot. But you how are these? And I think you're able to go a little bit more in depth than I am. Uh, how are these impacting people's motivation and desire to pursue truth? Everything from 5G towers to what's in our food, what's in our water, the vaccines, pills, everything. How is all of that affecting many people's desire to pursue truth?
In my opinion, all of those things that you just listed that are poisoning our bodies and our minds, I believe it almost takes away a lot of your energy and your desire to seek out truth, because what that does is not only does it keep your physical body in a low energetic vibration, but it also shuts down your pineal gland, your third eye, which is your spiritual connection to the infinite intelligence of the universe, or the God consciousness that flows through all of us. That it's even mentioned in the Bible in Luke 17:21. It says, oh no, wait, it's not Luke 17:21. It was where did it go? Hang on, I think I had it in here. Oh, it's Matthew 6:22. It says, "The light of thy body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single," what's your single eye? It's the pineal gland in the middle, in the middle of your head. It says, "When thy eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." Well, what does it mean when you're full of light? Light is also metaphorical for knowledge and wisdom, right? And with all this poisoning, the fluoride in the water shuts down your pineal gland. The vaccines shut down your pineal gland. The GMO foods shut down your pineal gland. Fear shuts down your pineal gland. Living in scarcity shuts down your pineal gland. Everything about the way that the matrix controllers have constructed our society is designed to shut down your pineal gland. And even in public school, they don't teach you about the pineal gland. I did biology class in public school, and they never mentioned the pineal gland. The seat of the soul is what the ancient Egyptians called it. The mechanism inside your human avatar body that allows the consciousness to incarnate and gives you your spiritual connection to the infinite intelligence of the universe. How could they not teach that in public school biology class? It had to be by design. And then when you look at who it was that actually financed and created the public education system in the United States, it was the Rockefeller banking families.
Yep.
They hid this knowledge on purpose. And when you read through these ancient scriptures, from the Bible, from the ancient cuneiform tablets to the Hindu text, all of them, there's a lot of references and metaphors that refer to this third eye. And that's one of the main reasons for all this stuff, the chemtrails in the air, the fluoride in the water, the poison food, the fear mongering, the vaccines. They have to shut down your pineal gland and disconnect you from the infinite intelligence of the universe, because that makes you easier to control. When you have a fully functioning pineal gland, like I know you mentioned, you reference the teachings of Jesus a lot. Jesus taught the pineal gland. He was a very advanced conscious being that understood, how to connect to the God consciousness of the universe through meditation, through fasting. Fasting opens your pineal gland. Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've ever done a fast. I've done
I have.
fasts, water fasts. My mental psychic abilities were like super amplified when I did a fast.
Yeah.
I could remember all my dreams perfectly clear. I was getting data downloads. I was getting intuitions. I was seeing numbers synchronistically. Like, I was connected to the infinite intelligence of the universe like I had never been before when I fasted. That's because all the calcification on your pineal gland breaks off when you stop eating all the poison GMO food.
That's funny that you bring that up because I started fasting this year,
Mhm.
And like many people who proclaim to be Christian, so many people are like, well, it's not commanded, so therefore I'm not going to do it. So that was me until I started learning this stuff. Earlier this year, there has been like 3 or 4 different times I have fasted for like 3 days. The longest was like 76 hours. But even in 3 days, I was I was able to I was more aware of my surroundings. I was able to think clearly, process, and I got a slow processor. But I was able to process things a lot faster than ever. And so, and I want to bring this up. We're talking about the 5G towers.
Mhm.
And we're talking about chemtrails, and we're talking about spiritual warfare, and we're talking about the pineal gland. There, a few days ago, my wife informed me of a documentary called "Climate." Come to me, Climate Trails.
Mhm.
It just came out, like I want to say in the last couple weeks. It's about these people who are exposing the chemtrails. And I thought at first, it was on Amazon Prime, and I thought, this might be just super watered down. I don't know. We're going to rent it. So I rented it. Let me tell you, I was very impressed with the information that was provided. Much of the information could get these people killed.
Mhm.
And that's not even, I'm not even being sarcastic when I say that. Um, they were talking about HARP, and HARP's main headquarters is in Alaska. You got all these towers that they're connected to, and how they, are able to modify the weather. And then talks about with the chemtrails, how it's like a blanket that sprays over these cities and the farmland and everything. And it lingers and it spreads, and people start hacking and people start choking, and people, oh, I don't feel good. My head hurts. That's a big one.
Mhm.
Well, it's because your body is taking in all of these metals, which that's a
Mhm.
very important word to remember here, taking in all these metals. And it's especially more dangerous for women who are pregnant and children, because they are more susceptible to all this. And so they're taking everything in like a sponge. And so what happens is when this metal gets into your body, the aluminum, there's mercury and all that as well in the vaccines and what's sprayed and whatnot, but this aluminum specifically gets to your brain. And so what happens is Alzheimer's and
Mhm.
dementia starts, basically being created and forming. And so not it doesn't just stop right there. And you might be able to know the terminology for this, but they crank up the heat, the frequency on these
Mhm.
5G towers, and you basically get microwaved constantly. There was a guy who was I saw this months ago, but there was a site that you could go on where you can see all the different frequencies increase and decrease throughout the U.S. And he's like, oh, it just increased here. You see this wave, you see, and it was like more like thermal image wise. But they are microwaving us.
Mhm.
But they have to get the metal into our body, so they do that through the water, they do that through the food, they do that through the air in which we breathe. It's getting insane. Do you have more information that you could probably elaborate on and probably educate the public more on this matter more than I can?
So what you're describing is what I call frequency wars.
Mm,
It's a more irregular type of warfare that uses very highly advanced technology, and rather than playing out the way that we see war in a Hollywood film, people running around with AR-15s and tanks, the world controllers have figured out a much more efficient, a much more subtle, and a much more diabolical way to kill people. And not only kill people, but engineer retardation.
mm,
What you're describing about the aluminum and the metals, that's also referred to as nanoparticles.
yep.
And then in the vaccines, they have something called graphene oxide, which is also a nanoparticle, but it's a computer it's a computer programmable nanoparticle. Now, what from everything I've studied, yes, the aluminum is contributing to Alzheimer's, mental brain fog, all that stuff. Also, autism. It contributes to
Yeah.
autism. It basically, like, once that enough of it builds up in your body and in your brain, you start having mental issues.
Right.
In combination with the graphene oxide, they're able to pulse microwave frequencies from the 5G towers that interact with the nanoparticles in your body, the aluminum, the graphene oxide. And that's why you see a lot of people, in my opinion, dying suddenly, where they're just falling over, where it looks like their body is going into a spasm. Their whole body starts spasming, they have a heart attack, and they fall over. And there's videos of this all over the internet over the last few years, ever since Operation Warp Speed and the vaccines got rolled out. People are dying suddenly everywhere. Athletes are dying suddenly, and they're all falling over and dying in the exact same way, where their body goes into like this kind of spasm response, and then they just fall over and die of a heart attack. And it's happening everywhere. The videos are caught on surveillance cameras in sporting events, because most of them are filmed. You can see the compilations of these videos if you search for them on the internet. A lot of them have been censored from mainstream platforms, but they're out there. If you go and search around, you will find them. Aside from these like microwave frequencies that are interacting with the nanoparticles, I think that they're just putting out all kinds of different frequencies, and they're experimenting with different frequencies. Like, I don't believe that they're fully masters of this yet. I think a lot of this is experimental warfare, where the human population is like their guinea pig, and they're trying
Yeah.
different things to see what works and what doesn't work. It's just like how the government was doing all those experiments back in the 60s, like MK Ultra, where they were
Yes.
experimenting with LSD. Like, the reason that LSD became such a big hit in the United States, that was a government psyop. They used LSD to experiment with people to see if they could combine the LSD with certain music, with the whole music festivals, to see if they could control people's minds with it. Like the whole hippie movement and a lot of these bands, they were part of that government psyop. That's why those bands were allowed to grow so big and made so much money and were booking tours everywhere. That was part of a government psyop. That's why John Lennon from the Beatles was killed, because he started blowing the whistle. There's even a video clip of Jim Morrison from The Doors, because he was part of that, where he was on stage, and you can see this is on YouTube now. He figured out what was going on, and he started blowing the whistle. There's a video of Jim Morrison on stage where he straight up, he just had to tell the truth. His consciousness couldn't allow him to not tell the truth. He's up there on stage like, you guys are all a bunch of slaves. And the crowd's like cheering. And he's just calling them all slaves, because he knew. John Lennon from the Beatles knew. Jim Morrison from the Doors knew. A lot of these big celebrities, musicians, rock stars, actors and actresses, they're all pawns in a big psychological warfare operation. And a lot of them, at some point, they realize it, and they have a freaking mental breakdown, like Britney Spears. That's why she had that mental breakdown. Chester, the lead singer of Linkin Park, was killed. Avicii was killed. Paul Walker was killed. And when you look at what they were doing, they became aware of what was happening, and they were going to produce documentaries about child trafficking.
Yes.
Right before they were killed. So when you start seeing the big picture, again, this is like just awareness. You got to have this awareness of how sophisticated everything is, and how literally everything from music to actors, celebrities, all of it is part of a control system. And it's all manipulated. Like how I was saying before about how literally there's nothing in this world that's not being manipulated.
Yeah.
So you really got to like dig deep here. Like, think about everything from your childhood that you just thought was normal and part of life. There's a high probability that in some way, shape, or form, it was being manipulated.
Yep.
And a lot of it is still what I call a frequency war, because what is music? A vibration. Yeah. What is a vibration? A frequency. What are the actors and the actresses? How do you view them on television? Well, that's a frequency. Light
Yep.
is a frequency. Sound is a frequency. The television is just a frequency generator. The radio is a
Yep.
frequency generator. The 5G towers are frequency generators. They're
Yep.
messing with frequencies, and they understand how the universe works to a much more advanced degree than the everyday average person. They're messing with you on the atomic level.
Yeah.
They're messing with your frequencies. They're messing with your mind. They're messing with your pineal gland. And it's just pretty like incredible how sophisticated the systems of enslavement have become. And unless you're awake and aware of this stuff, you got to have a functioning pineal gland to really see it, because your pineal
Right.
gland is your intuition. When you got a fully functioning pineal gland and you're connected to that infinite intelligence of the universe shows you. You have realizations, you have aha moments. The universe is going to tell you with a hunch or a gut feeling, that's BS. And then the education system is dumbing people down simultaneously while disconnecting you from that infinite intelligence of the universe. That's why in public school, it's what I call a compulsory education system, where children are taught to mindlessly repeat and regurgitate information rather than question its validity.
Yeah.
They give you a grade memorizing a bunch of BS from a textbook that really doesn't even help you survive in this world. Did anything? I mean, there might have been a couple little things in school that were helpful, but for the most part, most of what I remember memorizing to get a good grade on a test, I have never used it at all.
Yeah.
In no way, shape, or form did like 95% of what I was taught in school help me survive in this world. And there was a more ancient system of education that was strategically hidden and removed. It's called the trivium. And the trivium is referring to a triangle, which is referring to the number 3. And it's referring to where 3 roads meet. And the 3 roads that meet are grammar, logic, rhetoric. And grammar, logic, rhetoric is the who, what, where, when, why, how. And the trivium education teaches you and puts you in the habit of systematically questioning everything that's presented before you before mindlessly repeating and regurgitating it or accepting it as truth. So think about this. How much difference would the world be if every single human questioned the politicians? When a politician was up there speaking, how much different would the world be if everyone sat there and questioned, who is this guy? What is his agenda? Who controls him? Who is paying him off? What is his history? What is his bloodline? How is he doing this? Why is he doing this? If everyone just systematically questions who, what, where, when, why, and how, and answered the questions of who, what, where, when, why, and how before accepting information as truth, every politician would be called bullshit.
Yep.
Every mainstream media propaganda campaign that they put on television, people would just sit there and question it and call bullshit.
Yep.
When they get that IRS tax bill, they'd question it and call bullshit.
Yeah.
So we have a problem where people don't question things. People have no critical thinking while they're getting hit with all these frequencies that are trying to manipulate them or turn them into what I call an NPC robot, a non-playable character, which is, when you're playing a video game, how there's characters in the game that are just programmed to do things. They don't think, like you're the main character, but there's all these characters that don't think. They're just programmed by the video game.
Right.
The Matrix turns humans into those non-playable characters where they're just mindlessly repeating and regurgitating. They're like zombies. Have you ever walked around a Walmart? You'll see them everywhere.
Yeah. One of the things I've learned, I learned as a soldier, is assessing.
Mm-hmm.
Assessing. People want to, throw out, don't judge me. Matthew 7:1, judge not, they be not judged. Well, they don't think about John 7:24, where Christ himself says, judge righteous judgment. And so here's the deal. Before I cast a judgment or come to a conclusion, I assess.
Mm-hmm.
It means I step out and I literally, how should I say this? I'm in a Walmart, and I stop and I just look around me and I just stop doing what I'm doing. which I don't like Walmart, but I'm just giving you an example. I stop doing what I'm doing and I start looking around and I start assessing how people are acting. They did a
Mhm.
one of the things I heavily study and I've been studying for years is human trafficking.
Mhm.
Okay, and there are these organizations that have these actors, an adult male, for example, and a child. Okay, both have agreed to do this, to do this experiment. So it's a social experiment, and so they'll be out in public and they'll be in an alley. Okay, and you'll see this adult randomly grab this kid and go into the alley, and everybody just walk by, not even doing a thing, not even doing a thing. And it shows where we are as a country. We don't care until it affects us,
Mhm.
you know. And so there's so many layers to all the evil that is out there. Do not wait for something to happen to you in order for you to wake up and start looking into it. Do not do that. Deprogramming was one of the hardest things for me to do. But with deprogramming, I was able to see the world for what it really was and what it really is. There's a lot of things that I think you can, you can add on to this if you want, but there's a lot of things that I've seen that are very disturbing. A lot of things that I've heard that are very disturbing. But someone's got to see them. And if you are not a true seeker and you don't have that kind of mentality, you won't be able to take what you're going to see. And so we look at, Islam is flooding this country, for example. You know how many women, and this is not the worst thing I've seen much worse, but you know how many women I see on a daily basis on X being beaten? And we've got most of these women in New York City voting for this Islamic guy. We don't understand what we are doing to ourselves. Um, this is happening, and just because it hasn't happened to you doesn't mean that it's not happening at all. When I did my episode, "The Government's Prey: Child Trafficking and Satanic Rituals Conducted by the U.S. Government," just a few months after I got out of the military over 4 years ago, I had a lot of pushback, and I had people tell me, even my own brethren, tell me, "Anthony, you better keep your mouth shut because you got a family to protect." I said, you know what? That's the reason why the country is falling apart. And I said, everybody wants to talk about the book of Revelation, but they don't want to talk about the one group that's mentioned. Actually, the first group that's mentioned is the cowardly. The
Mhm.
cowardly. You chose to have a family. You chose to do that. That doesn't mean that you should not fight. That doesn't mean that you should keep your mouth shut, because if you keep your mouth shut, you're only delaying the inevitable. You're not protecting your family. You're actually making your family more vulnerable. So we've got too many people who hope and pray that we become free, but we have very few that are actually trying to put in the work and do it. And so you got all this going on. And I recently had someone tell me when I sent them the climate trails, prime example, they told me, yeah, we're screwed. There's nothing we can do. Yeah, there is. Um, I'm going to start throwing out examples. You've got Noah. His obedience, if you read the book of Genesis and you look at Noah's life, it talks about Noah than it does his family before the flood. Because of Noah's obedience, 8 souls were saved. You got David, Hashak, Meshach, and Abednego. They did not bend the knee to idols. Guess what? It almost cost them their life. But because they stood up, they were able to convince the king and convince the rest. You got the prophets, who did everything they could to try to warn the people of what was to come if they did not obey. Some obeyed, sometimes they did, but most of the time they didn't. They still made an impact. You look at Christ and you look at the impact that he made. You look at the 12 apostles and the impact that they made. You look at Esther and Mordecai and the impact they made in the book of Esther. Two people saved a whole nation. Two people. Now God's hand was obviously involved in that, but you see what one to two people can impact, how they can impact a whole country. You can impact your community, you can impact your family, you can impact the country, but we need more people standing up to this. I mentioned this earlier. It bothers me how we have so much access to information and assets and weapons and ammo, and we got all these assets that we can use to fight against it. We've got all the tools to fight against it. Very few do. But I find it interesting that those in China, those in Africa, those in Europe, and even some in the Middle East have way less than we do, but yet they put up more of a fight than we do. I think that's embarrassing. When the pandemic hit, I believe it was in Shanghai, that they were hundreds of thousands of people, Chinese people, were actually rebelling against their government. Hundreds of thousands of people with no guns. No guns. We've got the tools to overcome this. The problem is we don't use them. Yet the ones that don't have the same assets, if any at all, actually have more balls than we do. It's interesting to me that we have that. And so, in closing, and we can, it can be a 5-10 minute close, but I want to encourage people: study, find that desire to study, understand the consequences of knowing the truth, but also understanding the reward. Freedom isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's a lonely road. But as you said, Sean, look, when you start on this path, you will attract people that are like-minded. And we all have different pieces. We all have different pieces to the puzzle. We can overcome this together, but it's going to take people standing up and coming together to actually come up with a solution and put something in action. You've got people in other countries, in third world countries, that are destroying 5G towers, which I find phenomenal. Okay? Phenomenal. But talking about 5G towers and metals as we close, one thing that I learned from that Climate Trails documentary was zeolite. And I'm going to dumb this down, but I've got zeolite right here. My wife has had this. I did not know much about it. All I knew is that it was a detox and whatnot. I did not realize, and you can get the powder or the liquid, I did not realize that with zeolite, it basically acts as a magnet to those metals.
Yep.
Okay, and then pulls it out of your body. Well, something that I am currently planning on doing very soon is going on a fast I want to try to get to at least 5 days, and not just 3, but at least 5, maybe more at first. But I'm also wanting to take this at the same time. Like, I want to hit this like I've never hit it before. And so if my clarity improved and my retaining of information and attention to detail increased within just 3 days of just fasting, I wonder what this will do along with fasting for 5 days, 10 days. I have a brother in Christ. He's a 20-year combat war veteran, and he's 57 years old, and good brother of mine, someone I would go to war with. He said that recently, within 2 months, he fasted the majority of that 2 months. Mm-hmm. He'd go 2 to 3 weeks, eat some grapes. 2 to 3 weeks, eat a bowl of ramen noodles. And that was it. Like, he only ate like 2 or 3 times within 2 months. And he fasts often. But this one was like, balls to the walls, if you will. And just the effect that it had on him. I mean, dude has already got it going on, okay? And he's very smart, very intelligent, but very aware of the spiritual warfare and Satanism and 13 Illuminati bloodline, Illuminati families, spiritual warfare. I mean, awesome what this guy knows. This just made him even deadlier. So those who are going to survive a bunch of this are going to be those who have the metals out of their body. Also, another thing, one of the farmers in that Climate Trails documentary said that he collected rainwater and tested it. And he was blown away with how much metal was in our soil.
Mm-hmm.
It's been corrupted, it's been polluted, but hope is not lost. Okay, there's still hope at the end of the tunnel, and so there are things that we can do today to create a better tomorrow. But it's going to take desire. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to putting something into action. There's only so much, me and you can do, Sean, over a podcast. Sharing posts and everything is great. Talking about it is great. But there must be something that we have to plan out and put into action. And that's the hard part. But if we deprogram and unite on the basis of truth, we can overcome this. I believe we can. So those are the thoughts I have in closing. Sean, is there anything you want to add? Anything you want to inform the rest of us before we close tonight?
Silence is acquiescence. If you're just going to sit there and bury your head in the sand, you're basically just part of the problem. The comfort zone is a dangerous place. And I believe a lot of people just remain in silence and don't take action because they're still comfortable. And sometimes it takes people to get knocked out of their comfort zone before they snap out of their mainstream media induced psychosis, for lack of better words, or they finally stop, sweeping things under the rug. But if too many people just remain silent, I guarantee you're going to get knocked out of your comfort zone, and it's going to be a hell of a lot worse than if you were to start taking action now and preparing and waking people up or contributing in some way, shape, or form to this this predicament that we're in as a species. Even if you just start making some videos or start a YouTube channel or something, it's going to create what I call a ripple effect in the space-time continuum to help raise humanity to a higher level of consciousness. Just by putting videos out and content out, what you're doing is potentially snapping someone out of their brainwashing. You're creating researchers. Because what happens if you put one video out there and you talk about any of the topics that we just mentioned, and one person sees it and is like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then they go and look up some more information on it. You gave them that first little thread of knowledge, and then they kept pulling on it to see how far it goes. I know there a lot of people are in situations where you might feel like there's not a whole lot you can do. Because a lot of people, they want to do something, but they don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they spend most of their time working at a job, they don't have a ton of freedom. But you can start in small increments. And then as you begin expanding your consciousness, and you're going to become more and more powerful. And what Anthony was saying about fasting and taking the zeolite to remove all the metals from your body, your brain is going to become more powerful. And we're all creative beings in this universe. We all have this conscious creative energy that we can use to create. And when you get your mind and your body clean, because it even talks about this. I know you reference a lot of stuff from the Bible. In Luke, it was in the Luke 17:21 says, "For behold, the kingdom of God is within you." Or in some translations, I believe it says, "The kingdom of heaven is within." Well, what is heaven? It's a living environment that is peaceful, abundant. And we have the ability to create that right here, right now on earth. But it starts with your mind, knowledge, education, wisdom, and taking action, not silence, not burying your head in the sand. That's how we can potentially win this war, is through the power of the mind and consciousness, because that's how everything manifests. It's all through a thought. Everything starts with a thought and then an action step. And what I see has happened, in my opinion, is that human consciousness has been hijacked. Human consciousness is a powerful creative force in the universe. But these world controllers have hijacked human consciousness and are steering it in a direction that is not to our benefit. So first you got to understand that, and then think. Go within, do the fast. Fast for a day or two. Go walk around in the middle of the forest, go in the middle of the desert where you're completely away from the matrix and all the noise, and just allow yourself to connect to that higher consciousness, that infinite intelligence of the universe. Because when you're all alone in nature, that's how you can get these downloads. Again, this is back why Jesus fasted in the woods for 40 days. He was out there opening his pineal gland, getting the downloads, connecting to the infinite intelligence of the universe. You can do that too. And what happens when you do that, in my opinion, is you start to figure out your true purpose in life, and you will also figure out the special gifts and the talents that you have been granted by this infinite intelligence of the universe, this energetic conscious frequency that's flowing through your body right now that causes your heart to beat without you thinking about it and causes your food to digest without you thinking about it. That is a conscious, intelligent energy. It's a vibration. Your heart is pulsing. That's a vibration. That's your heart is pulsing at a certain frequency. Well, what's causing that frequency? It's the conscious intelligence of the universe that is flowing through you right now. And that conscious intelligence has given each and every single one of you special gifts and special talents that are unique to you that you can use to be that powerful creative force in the universe.
Absolutely. And I'll say this one thing. You don't have to know everything in order to say something. Just like he said, if you just have some type of knowledge of something, even if it's like for me, for instance, I'm not the best with terminologies and these very descriptive words and things that it's hard for me to understand at times. Uh, I surround myself with people who are more educated than I am, who know these deeper layers, and they help me understand better. And then I pass that along. I pass that along. I pass that along. But like if you watch climate trails and you've been oblivious to all these chemtrails and you believe what the media says about them and whatnot and the government, then if you see this and you change your mind, share it with somebody. That might open their eyes too.
Mm-hmm.
And also another thing is one of the things I thought about doing was getting a Zoom call or a Zoom meeting together and sending out, I'm on Nextdoor, so which is like a community app, sending out a password and saying, hey, I'm going to be talking about this subject, 5G tower, spiritual warfare, the metals in our body, whatever, you name it, something very, important. I'm going to create the meeting. I'm going to say, this is what time this is going to take place. It's going to be for an hour long. Here's the passcode to it. Look forward to seeing you there. I'm going to try that very soon and see what kind of feedback I get. Hopefully, many will choose to click on that, but it all starts with you. And that's my point. You can make an impact. Don't worry about it being big or small. Make an impact. Make an impact. And so, for those who are more influential than I am. If you haven't thought of that, hopefully that helps. But we need to get people understanding this because time is ticking and we don't have much time left. We don't have much time left. So it's now or never. So make the choice to get in the fight. Get in the fight. Get in this fight with us so that we can come together, unite, and overcome this evil. Sean, thank you so much for being on the Christian Constitutionalist podcast. And I hope that we can have many more sessions like this in the near future.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. Y'all have a blessed night.